James Kaufman, World News Report today, June 17th, 2025. God bless you and yours, no matter where you are in the world. Please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell for critical future updates. Ladies and gentlemen, we've just had a directly Earth-facing X1.2 solar flare at 21:49 UTC time, 4:49 Central Time here in the U.S. Now that came from Sunspot 4114 and is basically directly Earth-facing. An R3 strong radio blackout was detected at 21:49 today, June 17th. Now we can almost count on a coronal mass ejection being lifted from this solar eruption, and it should have an Earth component to it based on the position of the flare. We already have one inbound 8.6 solar flare that created a CME that should be hitting Earth this evening into tomorrow. Although they're not forecasting it, I am. If this created a CME, which I'm fairly certain it did, we should be seeing effects in about 35 to 40 hours. We still have a large coronal hole, as you can see here, Earth-facing, but winds are really not exceeding 500 kilometers per second, where we'd expect them closer to 600 plus kilometers per second. All right, first we'll take a look at our X1.2 solar flare here. Again, 4:49 Central Time here in the U.S., 21:49 UTC time. We can also look back at the M8.6 flare that popped off here, and we should be seeing the effects of that, well, sometime in the next few hours. We know for a fact that the M8.6 flare did create a coronal mass ejection as seen on LASCO C3 and will have an Earth component associated to it, although NOAA or NASA neither is predicting any type of solar weather impact. Jumping over to spaceweatherlive.com, taking a look, we can see on top there, 4114 produced an X1.27. 21:49 was the maximum of the solar flare. I do not know why it's gray. This is a Delta class Sunspot group here. That's 4114. We had a little action out of 4114, mostly C flares, and we had one flare just as the day started at a 4113, which is not a complex sunspot. Today we had a 25% chance of an X-class solar flare, a 75% chance of an M-class solar flare, and, well, we are running a C baseline once again. Taking a look at the star, 4114, directly in the central area of the northern hemisphere of our sun. It's going to definitely have an Earth component to it. If it did create a CME, which I'm positive that it did, we see 4113 right here that got into action early this morning. And altogether, on the Earth-facing side of the disk, it looks like we have 7 sunspot groups, although some are going around the far limb, and it looks like we have some new ones that need to be named. All right, we can actually see the flare here happen right there, coming out of 4114, sunspot group 4114. You see some activity trailing that sunspot as well. And we see that we still have a large coronal hole Earth-facing. We should be getting pounded by solar winds, and we really aren't seeing very powerful solar winds at the time. In fact, we're not in any type of geomagnetic storm or disturbance. All right, taking a look at NOAA's KP index forecast for June 17th, June 18th, and June 19th, you can see that we had no problems today, no space weather. And tomorrow, it doesn't even look like they're expecting a geomagnetic disturbance. We might see a disturbance later in the day, That would be from the M8.6 flare, I assume, since we currently have solar winds pounding Earth and our shields are down and we're seeing very low KP indexes. June 19th, they really showed nothing again. The largest we see in the next 3 days is a 4.33. I'll completely disagree with that and say that we see a geomagnetic disturbance and storm over the next couple of days. Heading over to the WSA Inland Prediction Center, the Space Weather Prediction Center, that we've paid big money to upgrade. You can see on the 17th here, they're expecting plasma in or around 2 centimeters cubed. I can tell you that that's not how it went down. They were also looking for solar winds up here near 600 and falling down to around 500. So 2 centimeters cubed they were looking for as far as plasma, and they were looking for solar winds to go from 600 to 500 kilometers per second over this 24-hour period. As seems to be the usual case, the flare went off right over Hawaii. Very strange how that continues to happen. They called it an R3 radio blackout, but this just does not look that strong to me whatsoever. We never know what to think with NOAA. How honest are they being? We don't see huge radio alternation, and this is the peak of the flare here. Remember 2149. Let's see if we can get it exact. And that is the peak of the flare there. And you can see it fades quickly. So it doesn't look like an R3 radio blackout to me. And I've been looking for quite some time. Many years. Now, for those of you who'd like to know what really happened with the weather today, it's been quite mild. Looking at the estimated planetary index, they were pretty on par as far as their forecast. We do see that the Boulder Index saying we're heading into a geomagnetic disturbance, which I do believe. We can see that we see a geomagnetic disturbance bar also on the College Index, very sensitive index. I'm going to, ignore that one, but I do believe that we're headed currently into a geomagnetic disturbance and storm, and it should be a combo of the M8.6 and the huge coronal hole that's Earth facing. Now, before we go, I thought we'd take a look at what's really going on instead of what they forecasted. And we can see that they said that plasma would be at 2 all day long. Well, it jumped up and went over space weather threshold here, 10.35, so they were completely wrong. I believe it did it more than one time. There's an 11.74. Remember, they had it at 2 centimeters cubed all day long. And our solar winds here started the day at about 475. They said that they would start at 600 up here and that they would end up at 500. Now, we'll say they ended up at 500, but they started at 475, 450. So another terrible call by the Space Weather Prediction Center and the whole bunch at NOAA. How embarrassing, period. God bless each and every one of you guys. We'll be back tonight with our live. Hope you join us there. Please share, subscribe, and always remember, anything's possible in Bizarro World.